the last video cut off, so as I tried to look at the text for reference to quote, but this is still subliminal acoustic manipulation. In the last two videos, I've provided a little bit of background and talked about how these like science-backed approaches started as artistic endeavors and moved into more dangerous territories. And the last thing that I was talking about before I got cut off was explain the first time people were thinking of how these how sound engineering could be applied to areas outside of theater. In a lot of ways that becomes a negative thing. And so in government, if someone is campaigning and their audience is exposed to what they were, it has a new name now, but at the time in 1935 when this journalist was publishing these articles, subsonic sound waves, so that the audience doesn't have to hear anything significant, but the sound waves provide them with the emotional response that is enough to dictate their political beliefs. And I stopped at this point in the video to do these videos because I want to draw the comparisons that kind of indicate how plausible this actually is, and why it's so interesting that people would be hesitant to push back on it, or to believe it, because it's pretty widely accepted that, like, music scores, for example, music scores are there to provide us with certain feelings. They enhance the themes, the feeling, whatever of the situation. That's why, horror film scores have different feelings, or are different than comedy, or a drama is going to be different than an action movie. And how the various sounds or lack of sound creates different effects on the audience, right? And even if people don't have a really good understanding of that, I feel like that's something that if you were to bring it up, it would be recognizable for them. It would be easily understood that in movies, TV, they use sound in a way that helps tell the story. But I want to call out one thing in particular that has been used, quite a bit recently too, which is in like suspenseful or in like psycho thrillers, thriller movies in general. There's been a big uptick in the use of, like, not necessarily music, but like frequencies. So if you're in a suspenseful moment, I feel like everyone would be able to point out, I don't even know how to totally describe it, but it's a frequency. It's just this sound. Like Christopher Nolan uses it a lot. It's like a buzzing, ringing sound. It makes you feel kind of like zoned in or suspenseful. It's kind of like the sound of, like, one of the best ways that I use to describe it is in Call of Duty video games. If you throw a flashbang, it's that concussion ringing noise. It's like a ringing. right? So that's an example of like that. For sure, it's just a sound. It's a frequency, a sound wave. And it has a really dramatic impact on how the audience perceives the scene. And so if you can establish that, right, in the argument, there's a definite link to sound and emotional response. And so and again, I'm not even like theorizing. All of these things are supported by science and data. I'm just trying to help conceptualize it in modern terms and provide modern examples. So the idea of subsonic, or whatever the modern language is around it, becomes even scarier because you understand how impactful it is when it is sonic. And you think about, okay, and this is where I wanted to wrap up. This is the point that I was trying to get to. A frustration that I've had, and that a lot of people, I guess, have been feeling is like, why does it feel like everybody's confused, nobody knows the truth? And it's because nobody is actually thinking. Nobody's thinking for themselves. They are exposed to linking this to thinking fast and slow. Everybody has been sort of conditioned into intuitive thinking and decision making. So we're not doing the section 2 critical thinking and actually analyzing complex problems. We're using intuition, and then the part of our section 2 thinking that we're using is just to support the intuitive thought. That becomes especially problematic in bigger conversations and in politics, and increasingly problematic when the vehicles, the mediums that we use to educate ourselves on the topics or the discussions are easily manipulated, and easily manipulated through sound. If you're getting it through an edited video, if you're getting it through, whatever it might be, an edited video, social media, condensed video, you're put into this suggestible state of mind that is easier to elicit a predictable emotional reaction. And part of this might not even be intentional. But it is exemplified in understanding from say an advertising or marketing perspective. You understand that the different mediums, the different social media outlets have different uses. They have different vibes. Like, people are interacting with the content differently, right? And then so you think about something like TikTok, and probably why TikTok is perceived as so dangerous is because it's the easiest way to manipulate visually, auditorily, everything. they actually use the word conditioning in the technical strategy in the 30s when they were doing this. The idea was to condition the audience to be prepared for, or to elicit, that predictable emotional reaction. I think it's the same with our current mediums. Anyway, I'm gonna go continue to finish this to the end.